Full metal jacket animal defense rounds in short barrels. What I have today is our Underwood 9mm+P and 357 Magnum. I just tested these two in longer barrels in my 4-inch barrel revolver and my 5-inch barrel semi-automatic pistol, along with the 357 SIG. Today I'm testing the 9mm and the 357 Magnum in short barrels here. So my main guns I'm going to use are the Taurus G2C with the 3.2-inch barrel and my Taurus 605 with the 2-inch barrel. Coincidentally, these two are the closest I have when it comes to barrel travel. If you line up the front of that bullet in that 357 Magnum, it's exactly the same amount of barrel travel as the front of the bullet in that G2C. You might have noticed though, I brought out my 9mm revolver. I'm going to run some through that to kind of see, because I'm curious about what we'll get through that. But I got to thinking, you know, I was going to do this test with just snub nose revolvers. Then I realized, you know, this ammunition here is not law enforcement grade ammunition. It's probably not going to have a sealant around that bullet. We'll probably get some bullet creep out if we try to use it in a little short revolver like the short barrel revolver. So I'm going to do my main test with our semi-automatic pistol here. And I was also reading some information about this 357 Magnum, and it also said that you're not really supposed to use that in like scandium frame revolvers. If you are, you only want to use like the first 2 rounds of it, because you might get bullet creep out. And my Taurus 605 revolver here is only a 20-ounce revolver on my scale, so I am going to check for a bullet creep with both of the revolvers with this. But our 9mm+P, we're rated at 1225 feet per second. I got above that in the 5-inch pistol a little bit, but we're definitely not going to see that in a little short barrel. Our 357 Magnum, I got a lot below its rated velocity, rated at 1700 feet per second in my 4-inch barrel. But it was pretty standard velocity. But these have really thick, hard jackets, and they are kind of a good option instead of hard cast, because they don't shoot as smoky. So I'm curious of what we'll get in the short barrels here. So we're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic test, and this is my dangerous animal simulation test here. So we have a thick layer of carpet to represent animal fur and hide, 6 inches of clear ballistics, which is a little bit double. It's double. I was going to say a little bit more, but it's double of what I normally use. And then a 1/2-inch medium density fiberboard to represent animal ribs, which again, that's double what I normally use. I usually use 3 inches of clear ballistics to represent a pectoral muscle and a 1/4-inch MDF. Now we're doing full 6 inches and a 1/2-inch MDF, and then a bunch of clear ballistics. And I got my blanky backstop there just to catch these in case they go through all of that, but I don't think they will. And then I am going to shoot at the steel target to see, you know, what kind of recoil control I can get with these, and follow-up shots and accuracy overall. So let's get started with this test. All right, first up we have our 9mm rated at 1225 feet per second. Let's see what we get in our little Taurus G2C here. See how close we get to 1225 feet per second. I'm about 5 yards from that target. $11.85, $11.91, $11.65, $11.67, $11.79. So really good velocity. By the way, it's a 124 grain. The 357 Mag's a 125 grain. So now I'm very curious here what we're going to get if I test it through my little snub nose revolver here. There's actually a little bit more barrel travel in this because the cylinder takes up a lot of space. There's not a lot of space taken up in that cylinder, I should say. But I did color one of these cartridges here, the last one I'm going to fire, to see if these will creep out. So I'm going to fire these very carefully. See what we get here. See how close we get to that about 1180-ish we got in that G2C. $1,099 really pulled that high and right. Wow, 1102, 1114. These things are shooting all over the place. And there's no bullet creep out at all with that. Nice. So I'm definitely going to use the G2C for my test because that makes more sense overall, more accurate, more velocity. But I was curious of what we would get out of this. All right, now our 357 Magnum, I'm going to check for bullet creep on that as well. So I did color the entire bullet. Let's keep going here. Hopefully we don't get too much flash so we can get a read. 1234. 1249. So I think I had a read of 1400. I'm not even going to count that one. That didn't even make any sense at all because that's higher than what I was getting in the 4-inch barrel. But those 1200s are exactly average of what you normally get. You normally get about 1250 feet per second with a full powered 357 125 grain. So those are definitely correct reads. So, you know, this stuff isn't that hot. It's pretty much as hot as Remington, Winchester. I wish they would spice this up a little more the way Buffalo Bore does. So let's hit our big animal ballistics gel block test thing and see how these compare. All right, so I'm going to do what I did at my longer barrel test. I'm going to put 2 rounds of each cartridge into our animal simulation and then go take a look and see what we got here. So 9mm, let's see what we get with this. Let's go take a look. All right, that is interesting. I don't understand this at all. Why would one pass all the way through that? We have completely different holes in the medium density fiberboard, yet one pass completely through all of this, but the other one didn't even come close. That's interesting. About the same amount of damage in this first 6-inch piece here. You have good damage going along here. For some reason, one stopped here at about 25 inches even. The other one went way past here. You know, if we calculate all this in here, we got 16, 16, you know, plus 6, 38 inches. And then we hit our little backstops in here. And it's just setting against our blanket here. Did not penetrate that blanket. Interesting. Let's hit that with our 357 mag, see how that compares. All right, same thing with our 357 mag. We'll put a couple into that and see what happens. 357 mag, snub nose. Let's go take a look. And again, really weird things happening. This is not typical. It went down and then shot back up after hitting the bottom of the shelf. And it's interesting here, the top shot has more damage than the bottom shot. But, you know, a little more consistent overall. It looks like there may be some tumbling going on with all these. But, yeah, we're just going to be pushing straight holes through here. I don't think that either of these would tumble by the time it hit this point. It's going to be hard to tell with this, but yeah, I don't think so. But different penetration with both of these shots, but they are pretty close, so I'm just going to take them for what they are. Our 357 Magnum, one of our shots here is at about 25 3/4 inches. Our other shot here is about it's right there, about 27 inches. So very interesting overall. You know, those 2 shots of the 357 outperformed that one shot of 9mm, but the second shot of 9mm went through all of that. I don't know what to make of that. That is very interesting. Other than, you know, with that first shot of 9mm, maybe that started to wobble and tumble a little bit, and that slowed it down. Even though the bullet's nose forward, it could have done that, and the other one could have just went perfectly straight. And with our 357s, one of the bullets is backwards, the one that went less, as where the one that went further is nose forward. So there's probably a little tumbling going on here, but What we can say though, taking aside this one that went through all of this, that, you know, the 357 and 9mm are right there, you know, between 25 and 27 inches. So I would say they perform about the same between both of these, even though the 357 had more power. Very interesting. So let me pull these out of block. We'll take a quick look at them. Then I'll show our steel, see what kind of practical accuracy I can get on steel. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets. Here's our 9mm. Here's our 357 Magnum. Not a huge difference. Looks like the 357, it looks like the nose on these bent a little bit, at least on that one. That's where our 9mm look completely intact. There's our 9mm. Yeah, the noses dimple in a little bit. One thing you'll notice though, they have a ton of copper on that. A really thick jacket, a lot thicker than typical. So you're getting your money's worth with this stuff because copper's not cheap, and that's got a lot of it on there, and it makes it really, really hard. That's why we don't see a whole lot of deformation with these. Now 357 Magnum, I can tell these apart because the bases of the bullets have a lot more soot on there. Not a very clean shooting round. It's just probably melting that lead a little bit, and that lead is dispersing onto that carpet, onto that copper. So you're gonna add a little bit of smoke when you do that, a little bit of flash. But there's nothing really spectacular to see with these other than, you know, our 357s look slightly different design, a little bit more nose narrowing as were our 9mm. You know, what I'm trying to say is has almost a slight semi-wad cutter shape to it, not quite with our 357, just a slightly. You probably can't even see it on camera. That's where our 9mm is more of just a smooth bullet. Very similar bullets. So that's a close-up look at those. All right, 12 yards from the target. I happen to have 5 rounds left from a fully loaded mag from doing this test. So perfect to compare to the 357 Magnum. So 5 rounds on target. I'm just gonna get a sight picture, line my sights up, pop these off as fast as I think I can hit the target. So let's see what I can do with our 9mm. All right, so a little bit much recoil for that pistol. Kind of slipping out of my grip with these gloves on today. 357 mag, let's see what this does. Alright, so harder to keep those controlled. I did have to kind of grip tighter to get those on target, and I think that kind of improved my accuracy a little bit. Even though that's terrible accuracy, at least I hit the target. So it is kind of hard to shoot this thing. So let me back it up a little bit. All right, 75 yards from the target. A lot of people are going to say this is stupid. You know, you're going to simulate hunting or something like that. Yes, and the reason why is because this ammo is pretty much designed to be more powerful and more effective than other ammo in its caliber line. You know, most 357s are soft points or jacket of hollow points or lead bullets. Something like a flat point full metal jacket is really meant to be kind of an SHTF hunting round, in my opinion. You know, if you had more money, had a better handguns and stuff like that, you would just get a 44 Magnum, or you would get something like a rifle. You know, I'm looking at it from the perspective of, I got a couple Taurus handguns here. What if this is all I had, SHTF situation? So I'm gonna up my ammo to something that's a lot more powerful and effective like this. And I'm going to go out in the woods, and let's just say I'm hungry, I see a deer, I'm going to take a shot at it. That's kind of the perspective I'm looking at with ammo like this, because hunting ammo and 9mm hunting, like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because you could pick something a lot better. So it is kind of SHTF, you know, make a load that's going to work type of thing in my mind. So 75 yards, I just want to see if I can make any hits here. Not sure where that went. So I think they're dropping a little bit. So I wasn't particularly good with that ammo. Last couple of hits I had to aim at the head on that target, so I think they're dropping a little bit. So 357 Magnum, do some single action, try to locate where these are going. So much flash I can't tell. Alright, so I think this is doing the opposite thing where they are wanting to shoot kind of high. It's something I see a lot with a very powerful short-barreled 357 Magnum. So I'll keep going. Thought I had that last one. So with this stuff here, you know, this is the thing I see a lot. I think people don't believe me when I say it. I do think that sometimes you get some recoil before the bullet leaves the muzzle. You typically see it with slower ammo, but I think, because you got a cylinder gap, if you got a lot of gas coming out, it's wanting to push off that cylinder a little bit. At the second that ignites, I think that sometimes that'll throw them kind of high. At least for me, that's what seems to be happening. So look at this ammunition here. Interesting stuff overall, and I do kind of, like I was saying, I do see it as SHTF ammunition. I tested it in the longer barrels, my M&P 5-inch pistols with 357 SIG and the 9mm, and my 4-inch barrel 357 Magnum. I tested that, and the performance as far as penetration isn't really greater than hard cast, but it does shoot a little bit cleaner. So these bullet weights are kind of light. Buffalo Bore makes an ammo like this, and they kind of market it as hard barrier penetration rounds, and the guy on that website says he loads jacket of hollow points, and then after that he's got these because if you get in a gunfight and your opponent's going to get behind a door and a car door, and then you could fire through it, something like that. That's where Underwood, the same ammo, basically they market it as hunting ammunition. So I do think it is a good option compared to a hard cast. It's kind of in the middle here, where you have a little bit lighter bullet weights than the hard cast, so you have a little bit less muzzle jump, and you're still pretty much penetrating similar amounts with less smoke, but you're not going to penetrate as far as a hard cast, because hard casts are typically a little bit heavier, and there's less friction on that bullet. They can do that and still get good velocity. As we're jacketed bullets, it's hard to take a jacketed bullet that's very, very long and heavy and push it at the same velocities that you would with a hard cast. So I think that's a pretty good option overall. Now between both of these, I'm going to say it's a wash. When it comes to animal defense, it's going to make more sense here between the two of these to use that 9mm, because we're talking 357 Magnum. There's a lot better choices, a lot heavier bullets. With 9mm, there's not really a whole lot better choices. So you're really wanting to have that low recoil on the 9mm, and you use something like this, and I think it would work for big animal protection. As where the 357 Magnum, even in a snub nose, I'm going to pick something that makes more sense. I would rather use a 158 grain soft point. I think that would penetrate more than this and have less muzzle flash and all of that. But between the both of these, our 9mm makes sense. If you're going to do a short barrel animal protection load with this type of ammo, with these grain weights, our 9mm wins. It makes more sense. Our 357 Magnum, while it didn't perform poorly, and I would say its accuracy is a little bit better if you really focus on the accuracy, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense with all the options out there. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.